All right. I want to first greet everyone. First, let me start off as we customarily do in the Nation of Islam, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. And I want to greet everyone here in the greeting words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum, which simply means peace be unto you. And I know my sister knows that greeting. For my Muslim brothers and sisters who are out there, Ramadan Mubarak. As you may or may not know, this is the first day of Ramadan in which we fast and really grow closer to God. So, along with this quarantine, we have the holy month of Ramadan, which really allows us to go into ourselves and reflect and to really connect with the essence of our being. So this is a beautiful time. First, let me explain for you all just a little bit about, and I'll share this screen. I'll be multitasking here. So a little bit about Knowledge for Life, and let me go ahead and share this screen for you so you can see what's going on here. All right. And let's see here. We'll go ahead and share Knowledge for Life. And just to tell you a little bit about Knowledge for Life, Knowledge for Life is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And our whole purpose, as you all can probably see on the screen, that we were hosting these conferences at Central State West. And we would have a nice audience. Our purpose is to bring together Black professionals to speak on issues impacting the community. And as you all know, this topic that we're talking on now is the one, okay, stop sharing that screen, is talking about infant mortality, which is a very serious issue. I know that we're talking about everyone got COVID-19, coronavirus on the mind, but in all seriousness, when a person does a little bit of research on this topic, they will come to find out that we were already facing a serious crisis, and that is the crisis of maternity and infant mortality. So with that, I want to go ahead and introduce some of our guests that we have on the panel. And we have, and I'll start with Sister Kortni Alston, who is a speaker or spoke at TEDx, Chief Happiness Officer at Dr. Kortni Alston, and founder of the Courting Happiness Movement.
Stephen, that's a different Kortni Alston. Same spelling, ironically. Yes, that's a good friend of mine.
Yep. Oh, no. So see, that's what happens when you go off.
I would love her credentials. She is PhD and a professor at North Carolina A&T, but that is not me. I represent Wilberforce University, and
okay, all right.
I don't want to. I love Kortni. We have the same exact name spelling, ironically, first and last name. Very ironic, but
yes,
that is not. Those are not my credentials. But she's a great woman.
Okay, absolutely. Well, I definitely apologize for that.
That's okay.
Well, hopefully I got some of the other ones right. Sister Andrea Jordan, MA. MSW and LSW from Wright State, and Sister Tiffany Terry, who is a professional birth and postpartum doula and owns Conscious Momma Doula Services, LLC. So first, let me go ahead. I want to play this clip first by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and then we'll go ahead and get right on into the conversation. And let me know if you all can hear this. Once again, let me share this screen. And we'll go ahead and play this clip.
Is the video playing?
All right, hold on.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Were you all able to hear any of that?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, we won't bother with that then, unfortunately. Let me see. Let's go ahead and get on into this though, into this subject. And it says here, it says that the U.S. is one of only 13 countries where the death rate is worse now than it was 25 years ago. And among the worst of healthiest countries in the world, between 700 and 900 American women die each year from problems related to pregnancy, childbirth, or complications up to a year later. So to go ahead and get into our subject, you know, what if you all could just go ahead from your 3 different perspectives, just make a short comment and then we'll go right on into it. And Sister Kortni, you go ahead and start off first.
So when you talk about infant mortality and the numbers, and it's almost 4 in 1 that a black woman or baby from a birth of a black woman, the babies are passing away at a rate compared to a white woman. And I bring the numbers more realistically, even just into Montgomery County in our area. I'm 1 in 4. 1 in 4 women experience a loss or miscarriage, stillborn, other losses of their children. In our city here directly, we are impacted tremendously by the effects of infant mortality. And in 2016, I lost a daughter to a sleep-related death after being a parent for 14 years. So it can happen to anyone. I just want people to know that it doesn't matter what you look like. There's no dialogue that belong or specific race or person or education level. There's just so many things that can happen to create these unfortunate deaths in our babies, and also maternal deaths that are happening due to the babies being born early, or mothers not getting the treatment that they deserve in the hospitals. There's disparities across the board when it comes to that. And it's just so unfortunate. So the numbers are just astronomical. And like I said, just even bringing it down to don't even leave Montgomery County where I am in Dayton, Ohio. It is just really, really sad to see these numbers that our babies are dying, more likely to die 4 times, almost 4 times as high as a white baby.
Right. And Sister Andrea, you want to go next?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're coming through clear.
Okay, wonderful. So first of all, I just want to say that I'm really honored to be invited to this panel. Ms. Kortni, I'm not familiar with you, but I would love to get to know you and to get to know the work that you do. And of course, I know Ms. Tiffany because we are in the process of establishing this doula collective that is going to be focused on across the spectrum of moms that, you know, come from all SES racial backgrounds or what have you, but specifically centering those underrepresented individuals who before now were not as centered or not at all centered in terms of how we think about what it is to be a mother, what it is to be a pregnant woman. I come from a social work background. So I teach at Wright State currently, but prior to that, I was engaged in clinical work with homeless teenagers. And most of the teenagers that I saw were African-American. And I would tend to receive the pregnant clients because we just work really well together. And so my perspective is not, even though we're starting this doula collective, I'm less familiar with the actual birthing process, and I'm more familiar with that spectrum of what happens from conception all the way up until labor, and then what happens following that. So we have to bring in into the conversation about numbers. We also have to bring in knowledge of these other systemic issues as they relate to how we treat mental health in the Black community, how we are treated when we go to the doctor's office, how our healthcare system is a system that was not created with us in mind, except for as subjects, to be subjected to the experiments or, what have you, that would bolster the system, but it wasn't created to help us, if that
Right.
makes sense. So we now have to live in and live with that system, and die in that system. So we have to bring into the conversation, like, yes, this is happening, and yes, it's happening based on a lot of health reasons. I think the top three, the top three causes of infant mortality are low birth weight, early labor, and then sleep-related deaths. So yes, that's important from that, like that concrete perspective. But we also have to talk about how trauma and stress and constant stress about being Black, being a woman of color, being a queer woman of color, bringing that intersectional perspective and those intersectional cultural stressors into the conversation. So that is where my perspective is grounded.
All right, Sister Tiffany.
Sorry, I'm having it's breaking up a lot really bad for me. I'm on my iPad because my MacBook, apparently I don't have Chrome, so it wouldn't let me get it. But
You're coming through clear. Your image
okay.
and audio is clear.
Okay, I just want to make sure. And I mean, Andrea, she said everything that I wanted to say, so she did a great job of laying out the platform. And of course, Kortni, I love I'm so grateful that you always share your story. That's amazing, and powerful and brave. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just from my doula perspective, I really see infant mortality from more so my goal as a doula is to prevent that from even getting there. So my job is when I work with clients when they're
it's breaking up just a little.
Them about the things that they're going through.
It was breaking up just a little. Hopefully,
I'm breaking up. Yeah, I knew it.
Hopefully, it'll be a good connection.
Go
right ahead. Yeah, I can hear you.
No, you can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. It's just trying to prevent them from getting to that point. So working with the mom, talking to her, encouraging her, educating her on her rights, and ensuring that when she goes into her doctor, she feels confident, and she understands that it's her body and it's her choice, and she was made for this. And so it's really just about empowering women to take back their power, to take confidence in their body, in themselves, and I feel like in doing that, it does help them feel less, and they're more empowered to stand up to the doctors or the nurses or whomever is trying to deny them the right to choose whatever it is they want to choose.
Look like we might have lost you. She might have to reconnect. But what I want to go into right now, of course, is starting local, and then we can go ahead and get on to just a broader view. But it says, and this is coming from the Dayton Daily, it says that the Ohio infant mortality rate continued to improve in the latest state report, though a wide gap remains between the rate of Black and white babies who make it a year to celebrate their first birthday. It says Ohio's infant mortality rate, the number of babies who die before the age one per 1,000 live births, was 6.9 for 2018. The Ohio Department of Health said Tuesday that the higher than 2017 national rate of 5.8. And then it says the Ohio rate has declined from 7.2 deaths per 1,000 births in 2017 and 7.4 in 2016. The rate among Black infants fell to 13.9 in 2018 from 15.6 in 2017. The Ohio and national goal is 6.0 or fewer infant deaths per 1,000 live births in every racial ethnic group. The rates translate into terrible loss and grief for Ohio families who lost 938 babies in 2018, 982 babies in 2017, and 1,026 in 2016. So when we look at this, what they're saying is that the national goal, the target is 6.0. But when we read about the stats for infant mortality deaths among Black women here in Dayton, here in Ohio, we're twice that 6 point. We're 13.9, and in 2017 it was 15.6. So what you're saying, Sister Andrea, about what we're dealing with is basically to figure all this out, because the doctors can't really explain it medically.
Right.
So what we're looking at basically is systemic racism. What we're looking at is really living in a toxic environment. And what we're looking at is, as for Black people, we're not, as hopefully Sister Tiffany will be able to make it back on, because really we're looking at a culture really that is not conducive to life for the Black man and Black woman. This culture is totally alien to us and is very toxic. And that is even really without the white supremacy, white racism. The culture itself is toxic. The way it treats women, the way the family is structured, everything is toxic. But with that, would you all like to go ahead and talk to that, those figures that we just read?
Sure, I'll go ahead. The numbers are just sickening to hear, because like you said, you take 2 pregnant women, a white woman, a Black woman, and you're telling me my baby is more likely to die just because I'm Black starting out. I mean, just starting out, just flat out, nothing else figured into that, to those numbers. And it's sad and unfortunate because a lot of it is resources, knowledge. Tiffany mentioned being an advocate for yourself. A lot of women, I know, even friends, I've gone to their births and they'll just let the doctor come in or the nurse plug up an IV, tell them. And I'm like, what is that? I've had 5 children. And each time, I promise you, every time I've delivered from when I was 22 to 39, the doctor or nurse has said, are you a nurse? Do you work in medical? I go, no, I work in HR, banking at the time. And they're like, well, you know so much, because I've read, because I've educated myself, because I'm not just going to let you put that IV in me or tell me I need this but whatever it is, you don't get people or mothers that feel confident enough, like Tiffany said, to speak up. They don't know. They think that because you're the doctor, and that's not necessarily true. A lot of times, maybe you're delivering with a different doctor. I know with my last baby, I was supposed to deliver at one hospital because of my insurance or because of their office. And my husband and I decided to go against the grain and show up somewhere else. And so we have all these doctors who have no idea who we are. They don't know my story. They didn't know I had a loss. They didn't know that I had a short and thin cervix. They didn't know any of those things. And they start just coming and I'm like, no, hold on, stop, wait, let me tell you what I want to happen.
Right.
This is my birth. But how many women do that because they feel intimidated? They don't have a clue as to what Pitocin is or how it's supposed to work, or if I need it. They hear epidural, give me the epidural, I have to have it, or, my friend did this, so this is what I'm going to do. There are so many unfortunate circumstances that cause these things to happen. And that's why we're having these deaths, because a lot of it is just education on what your rights are, what you can do, what options you have. Don't let someone treat you less than because of your insurance type. A lot of times they think I'm younger than what I am when I go in. I've had them treat, because when I was 22, when I had my older son, they thought that I was some 16-year-old girl that she said, are you waiting on your mom? And I'm like, No, it's just, just things that how they tend to treat you or try to just make you go along with what they decide is best for you. I told my doctor going in, this is what we're going to do. I want progesterone injections, P17. I'm telling her, and she's getting on the phone doing a peer-to-peer review with United Healthcare because of my request. But how many people know that that's an option? You don't, and then you have where the insurance rejects your first attempt to try to get these things done. And you have the doctors like, oh, well, they said no, so we're not going to. No, you're going to go back in there and fight because I had them before. So there's no reason to say no now, so there's just so much that goes into that, those numbers and the reasons. And I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on.
Right.
About this topic, but because I know Andrea was saying, she mentioned how like the before and the after or the trauma sometimes. So I had 4 children actually, birth fine. My 4th one passed from a SIDS, sudden infant death related sleep death. So when I had my rainbow baby, the baby after the loss, my son, I was stressed from a level of, my whole pregnancy was on pins and needles. Like I didn't sleep, I promise, for a whole year, real sleep. Because every little step of my pregnancy, I'm now nervous because I know what it's like to experience a loss. Not that I had a stillborn, but I had a live birth pass after, so I'm nervous that now because I go to these groups, now I know about stillborns. Now I know about placentas that come apart and rupture. And then, so all these things are now at my frontal lobe or right here at the front of my life that never even crossed my mind because it's now my reality. And then to finally have my birth and have my son here, now I can't sleep because I'm afraid he's going to pass in his sleep. Even though I'm doing everything, I breastfeed, he's on his back. I know what to do. He's not overheated. The temperature is perfect. I know what to do, but I also knew what to do in 2016 and it happened to me then. So the stress level of having a loss and now having a new baby, and now I'm traumatized and anxiety and my nerves are bad because now I'm afraid to let this new baby go to sleep and me go to sleep because I know what can happen. It's my reality. It's not something I watched on Lifetime. It really happened to me. So you have all those factors of being a mom of 4 kids at the same time and trying to take care of this new baby and take care of myself and go to work every day and pay daycare at astronomical numbers because it just costs, just all these stressors.
And
you want me to have a healthy pregnancy. How is that possible?
And Sister Tiffany, who we're glad that you were able to join us. But that's one of the reasons why it's so important to have a doula. Is that correct?
Yes, I would agree. We can't take away everything, but I do feel like having someone who understands the process, who's been there before, who's worked with multiple moms or even personal experience, even though you don't have to be a mom to be a doula, but I've attended a lot of births. I've helped a lot of babies postpartum. I myself have 2 children. I've experienced miscarriages in second trimester. So, I definitely understand all of those things. And so I take those experiences and then just my understanding of the way the hospitals and the doctor's offices work. And I've been in births with different providers. So I've experienced the residents. I've experienced, certain practices. And so I have a relationship with them, so to speak, and I understand how they operate. So I feel like I'm more equipped to navigate that system and inform my client on, here is how they operate. Here's what you can expect. Here's what I recommend, never speaking for the mom, but always being that education, because I think, I heard you mention it when I was first coming back on is, that you don't even understand what you can do. You don't know that you can negotiate, and it's unfortunate that, we as individuals, we grow up in a society that doesn't always encourage us to exercise those rights, that doesn't encourage you to stand up or to, fight for the things that you want. You kind of think that if a doctor or someone tells you that it's not possible, that that's the end of it. And I mean, that's just not how life works. Everything is basically negotiable. And there are people who know that. And
No.
so my job is to, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you go right ahead. I want to ask this question about education for Black men, Black women, white men, white women. You know, as far as childbirth being something that, even though it's natural, it's not something that you necessarily know about. What do you all think about the educational system and how it should prepare? I mean, really, I don't know. The educational, as many call it, the public fool system, for a reason, because how is it that you are graduate and you don't even know some of the simple basic facts about how to take care of your finances and, you know, as far as childbirth is concerned?
Anatomy. Some, you know, you would be amazed at some of the things that body parts have been called, you know, and this is me working with women who are, you know, have had babies before or may even have got a college degree. And it's like, you know, just how limited we have experience with it. I know, I mean, high school, I don't feel like I left high school ready to, you know, go run my finances in addition to, you know, understanding my body fully. And so there's just a lot that isn't taught. It's out there though. And so I think, you know, one of what I feel like my role is to point you into that direction. Like, hey, you know, we do got to work a little harder. We have to catch up. You know, it wasn't handed to us, but it's out there. It's information that we can attain, you know, and so I'm going to do my due diligence and my responsibility as a, you know, member of the community to show you where it is and to put it out there whenever I get it and to share any information that I receive and never hold anything back from anyone. And I feel like if more, you know, of us are just more willing to come forward and share our information and anything that we know, but then also encouraging other people to go do their own research. And, you know, it's not going to be easy. It isn't falling out the sky. You know, you do have to go look for the information. And it's sad because, you know, some of that stuff should be falling out of the sky. You know, it should be ingrained in the system, but it's not. You know, I don't know if that's intentional. I don't know, but we do need to know about our bodies and we do need to understand how they work because it is a natural process. And so that would really help. You know, some people think that the baby is in their stomach,
Right.
you know, which is like, you know, that's a whole nother issue right there. And so, so I do think that there is a lack of education and information that's accessible. I mean, you know, I even was speaking with some other doulas and how when you go to the gynecologist prior to being pregnant, there isn't even a lot of preconception help. There isn't a lot of education on, you know, hey, you're of childbearing age, you're married or you're single or whatever. Are you thinking about having a baby within the next year or so? Here's how you can prepare your body because it starts before that, you know, like, you know, the stress and all of that. You learn how to manage that before you get pregnant. You know, I mean, because it does. You can take that prenatal pill
before you get pregnant. You can start
before it grooms your body. You need to exercise, you know, be in a healthy state because pregnancy adds a lot of stress and weight to your body. And if you're already overweight and have, you know, poor chronic health conditions, then that's just going to add on to the stress that your body is already enduring. So there are a lot of things that we as women could do to prepare our bodies to have more successful pregnancies and take on habits and start some changes prior. But I don't feel like there's a lot of those counseling or consultations occurring with women and their gynecologists before they even get pregnant. Right now, it's just you show up, hey, I took a test.
You're already
pregnant, and then, okay, well, let's do prenatals and let's get an ultrasound, and that's it. So, you know, but it's too late at that point because now the baby is already in there and the baby's already being exposed to everything, all the stress, all of your experiences. The baby can tell. I swear. You will, it's just there's a difference. I won't even go down. It's a difference. I know I have 2 kids and they're different, and my pregnancies were different.
Well, let me ask Sister Andrea. You know, the environment that we're giving birth in, we have a food desert basically going on, and then we have these systemic racial issues that Sister was talking about with the PTSD. These systemic issues, there's a term called weathering, and it is stress-induced wear and tear on the body. weathering causes a lot of different health vulnerabilities and increases susceptibility to infection. But it also early onset of chronic disease, particularly hypertension and diabetes. And so when we read about that, that's one of the causes for not just the infants to die within the first year, but it also impacts the mother's health.
The mother.
So right. So it's interesting because the notes that I was taking as Miss Kortni and Miss Tiffany were talking really dovetail with that perfectly. So first of all, yes, let's bring maternal mortality into the conversation, because not only are Black babies dying at a rate that is I think now 2.5 times as high on the national average, and I think in Ohio 4 times higher than white babies. But also our moms are dying at a rate that is astronomical in relation to the way that white moms are dying. And a couple of those causes of death relate to health issues like preeclampsia related to hypertension, obesity, diabetes, and other things that Black people are particularly susceptible to. However, you bring up a good point, right? So our bodies are stressed before we get there. So talk about, for me, what's coming up is that we first of all have to start to have a cultural conversation about body autonomy, because we don't want to start there. So a lot of our children are exposed to sexual trauma, and we don't have those conversations. We don't have conversations about what happens in our households. We don't welcome conversations about bodily autonomy, and when do I want to have sex, and do I own my own space, and when can I say no, and what does consent look like? And so you talk about high school education. My high school sexual education was sign a virginity card and pledge that you will, in a public high school in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and pledge that you won't have sex. Well, what happens if you do? We don't know, because that means that you violated the card. And so there's already a great deal of shame and guilt in relation to just the act itself. I always say, death, birth, and sex are the 3 things that have been around since the beginning of time, and the 3 things that we're still the most awkward about. We still don't understand all of these issues as they relate to sex and death. So I think that, and also it brought to mind for me, there was a time where I went to Planned Parenthood with one of my clients who was a homeless youth, and she went just for a checkup. We noticed that she probably had some symptoms and really needed to get checked, and had not been checked since she had become sexually active many years before. It turns out that she had a sexually transmitted disease that had progressed so far that it became a pretty serious situation. However, when she was in the middle of the examination, she passed out. And she passed out, that physical somatic response was in relation to an experience of trauma that she had before. So when we think about how many times you have to go to the doctor and be touched by somebody you don't know, and it's not always gentle, and it's not always kind, and they assume that there's evidence, empirical evidence that has shown that doctors feel that Black people feel pain less, or more tolerant to pain than white. So all of that, when you take all of those factors into account, it's no wonder that some of our babies are preterm or are too small, because maybe some of our moms don't want to go to the doctor, and they don't want to go to the doctor because it's traumatizing, and it's traumatizing to them because they have a history of trauma that we don't talk about. So not only do we have to start to have that conversation before we get pregnant, before we become adults, before we become sexually active and after, but we also have to start having conversations that are transparent and that are community-based about what our birth experiences were. I first became aware that there was this large disparity between Black women and white women in terms of infant and maternal mortality when I was 8 months pregnant. So, and I did this deep dive into it, and it was terrifying to me. And then my birth experience was traumatic. And it's traumatic because of that authority that someone comes in with, and you do feel like you don't have a lot of choices. And then when you do speak up, a lot of times we're told, oh, you don't want to save your baby, or you don't want to, and so you're scared into submission, which is the story. When you look at it in a wider context, being scared into submission is something that happens to our Black bodies a lot.
Right.
This is not the first time that I've been scared into submission. So my body already knows what to do. My brain already knows what to do to survive this moment. Right? Because that's the story of our life. Survive this moment and get to the next one, and then you'll be, you can figure it out when you get there. So I think even just hearing our Black moms talk to other Black moms is a very, and talk to white moms and talk to doctors and nurses, and to feel empowered about sharing our story. That in and of itself is also a really important part of something that we can do, in addition to, as we work to change the system, as we work to get a more efficient healthcare model, as we work to educate doctors and nurses about trauma and resilience informed birth education and support. We also can increase and strengthen our network within our own community and change some of our language and challenge some of our understandings about how we perceive our bodies, what they're for, what they're meant to do, and when we are allowed to do those things, or when we're allowed to engage in those activities, or when we're allowed to say that we don't feel safe. I think that a lot of growth that our community is ripe for a lot of growth in those areas. And I think if we see growth in those areas, we may also start to see some of those numbers come down.
Oh, absolutely. And Sister Tiffany and then Sister Kortni, I wanted to ask on the front end, as we were saying, there's not a lot of education. How does a person contact you and get your assistance going through this this whole process? And then as she ends up, Sister Kortni, if you can explain on the other end, since we do have a high infant mortality rate, what is there for the mothers after this traumatic experience happens? Where did you go to get help, and not only physically, but mentally and spiritually as well? So, Sister Tiffany, if you could talk about that process, and just, we touched a little bit on how a mother can prepare herself. And as you all were saying, a mother we need to be prepared from day one coming out the womb.
Yes.
we need to be breastfed, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little later on, especially with this COVID-19 coronavirus. It's very important that the baby receives the immune system really from the mother that will help buttress and strengthen the baby's immune system. But if you could go ahead in that beginning process and how you can help mothers go through that period.
I think I'm understanding you want to know how a mom can find a doula. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So currently, it's a little challenging. I know, because some women don't know where to start. Like, I know personally, I have like a Facebook page. So I have like social media outlets. I do have a website. I have provided my name to some providers, and they have a list that they provide to moms for doulas. And then, most of my clients come from word of mouth. But there is, you can it is a website called Doula Match that you can look up, and most doulas are on there. We all kind of put our name in the registry. Or, really, I always encourage moms to talk to other moms that they know, because they may know of a doula. All doulas aren't created equal. And so, you do want to shop around just like anything. And you want to make sure you find the right fit for you, because, although my philosophy as a doula is never to, force a mom to take on my beliefs as a mom and how I parent and how I was, if you don't want to breastfeed, I'm not going to force you to breastfeed. I'm going to educate you on the benefits. But ultimately, I'm empowering you to make choices for yourself. So whatever my schedule is, whether I vaccinate or whether I, circumcise, that's all personal for me. I'm not going to impose that on another person. But you do want to, talk to some different doulas, ask around. You can always Google it. It's not as widely out there. Like, there's not like a big manual, like, oh, what are the doulas in the area? Hopefully through our collective that we're forming, we can work to get more advertisement out there, more education for moms to know. But that's how we did it now.
And there's not a lot of black doulas out there right now. From what I'm researching, is that it's still a growing number. So how does one become a doula? Because I think that that's going to be I think the doulas are going to be the key for us stemming this whole thing. I don't think that we're going to be able to rely on the system of white supremacy and racism to correct itself when we're concerned. That clip that I wanted to play from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was one where he was talking about how Moses saw the children of Israel growing and that they were becoming, they were multiplying, and that he came together with his officials and he said, come, let us deal wisely with them, We can't go out there and just shoot them down, even though that's happening. But let's deal wisely with them. So now we have this issue with infant mortality and maternal mortality, and the situation is so bad that we rank higher in infant mortality and maternity mortality than some third world countries. So this right here is this right here, we should, as Black people, we should understand that we need to recapture our own culture, and we need to reject their culture. This is just period. I mean, we're coming to the day and time where you don't need to scratch your head about these type of things. But how can a Black woman become a doula?
Well, luckily, as I know Kortni was mentioning earlier, I was like, okay, I'm pregnant. I need to figure out all of this stuff. So I did a lot of research, but I have a master's degree, so I definitely understand, like, you need to research things, not that you have to have a master's degree to understand that, but, like, just giving you that mindset, like, that's how I go about things. And so I signed up for every Facebook group there was for moms who were pregnant or breastfeeding or baby wearing, bed sharing, all of that. I signed up for all of it. And so one of the moms in one of the breastfeeding groups that I was in, who was actually the person who started the group, she was a doula. And she had shared some doula trainings that they were having in Cincinnati. And my daughter was 6 months at the time. And so, I was really excited to figure that out. So I was like, hey, I'm going to go. And they said I can bring my new baby with me because they were encouraging, because I was breastfeeding and I hadn't left her alone. So she and I went 3 days and we got trained to be a doula. So she thinks that she's a doula too. And then, so it was called To Labor. That was the organization that I got my birth doula training from. And then when I was pregnant with my son in 2018, 2018, I went and got my postpartum doula training for Kappa. And it's like a more national one, a doula training organization. And so I did that one also. So those are some of the ones, but there are, I know, like Cincinnati, they have,
I was going to say Dona. Sorry.
Yeah, Doula is the national one. I know, like, Cincinnati, they have like a Black collective for doulas and birth workers. In Columbus, they have Roots, and they have a lot of Black birth, workers and doulas together. And then there are a lot of different, trainings. Yes, I love BMMA. They're amazing. Detroit, they have a really big population there too of doulas and Black workers. So there are a lot of resources, but I love BMMA. And Rose, they're based in Atlanta, reaching our sisters everywhere. They have a lot of doula stuff and breastfeeding support. So it is a lot of there out there, just do a lot of Google searching, and really just connecting with women that I mean, like, Facebook, for what it is, it does allow you to connect with people who share common interests. And so I definitely have taken advantage of that.
Absolutely. It's to you, Sister Kortni, with that question about after. Yes. Can you speak on that?
Yeah. First, let me just backpedal to Tiffany. And I would say that even my personal lifestyle has perked a little interest in wanting to be a doula. And I have research has shown that this could, because of what I do already in my heart, I feel like that is just like a perfect fit, because you're the voice, you're the advocate, you can be the sister, the whatever it is to that mother. So just know that your work is not going unnoticed, and that it has, you know, sparked a little interest in some other folks to take on some of that. As far as resources, some things that kind of helped me through my situations. I would have to start first with giving glory to God, who has, without him, I would not be here. So I do know that spiritually, if I did not have a higher power to guide me, give me a peace of mind, a calming spirit, and just a realistic piece on to help me sometimes even just come back to a space where I can even just breathe sometimes. I am thankful for that. Resources, and I hate to throw out names, I'm not going to name everything because my mind, but the HEAL program at the Atrium Medical Center in Middletown, Ohio, provided a counseling group for me where I have met some of the most amazing women, nurses, moms who are now my sisters that belong into a sorority that no one wants to ever belong to, because we have had experienced the loss, whether it was a miscarriage, a stillborn, an infant loss. The HEAL program, anyone that's ever attended one of their events, I have friends that have said this was amazing. They do a walk every October. They do a summer program. They do a Christmas tree lighting. It is HEAL to Help Endure a Loss program through Atrium Medical Center, and it is hands down one of the most amazing programs that I have ever experienced. It's very sad to say that there was nothing like it in our area. It's very unfortunate that I have to drive to Middletown to get this. They're through Premier, so you would kind of figure that they would be able to make some kind of match.
I tried.
I tried.
I tried to bring it here when I was working for public health.
I've tried. I've worked my brain. It's just, for some reason, it's just so strong there. And unfortunately, where we need it, it's not happening. Yeah. So, but I do recommend, you know, I don't to say that, but it's still one of the best. They offer a counseling group every third Tuesday of the month. You send an email. They're very personable. You can call. Just amazing team. So I give kudos to HEAL and at Atrium Medical Center. I did some work with Wesley Community Center in the heart of Westwood in Dayton, Ohio, and it was one of the best programs that I have worked for. I'm still in touch with Teresa and Brenda and Isha there. They are very hands-on and trying to crack this infant mortality madness that we have going on through Wesley Community Center. I was able to enroll and become a safe sleep ambassador through Columbus Public Health, where I'm able to educate moms on proper safe sleeping. And myself and Isha did that a few months ago with them as well. So shout out to Wesley Community Center in Dayton. I have to say some other resources would have to be Help Me Grow in Dayton. If you're pregnant and can get a Help Me Grow nurse, they've been known to help. And you know, the biggest thing is, if you're not happy with what you have, you can change and you can seek more information, whether it's your gynecologist, your OB, your nurse, your Help Me Grow nurse. If you feel like you're not getting answers, WIC is really good with breastfeeding peers. I was a breastfeeding peer with Public Health WIC. That is probably one of my most rewarding jobs, because I was able to educate moms on breast. I'm a huge breastfeeding advocate. I know we'll touch base with that later, but I'm still nursing a toddler. There are benefits to all those great things, and I'll fight whoever goes against me. But
I'll fight with you, girl. I'll fight with you.
So there's just so much resources myself. People, Wesley knows how to contact me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. just if you ping me, if you have people ask me questions, I have people ask me, I have friends text me, call me, hey, what about this? Should I be going through this? Whether it's through a loss, unfortunately, or through something they just didn't know about breastfeeding, or they didn't know about a resource. Wesley has a program where they'll help you with some things, even educate you on how to be a better parent. There's dad programs through Montgomery County Public Health. The dads need to get involved. We always sometimes leave them out of the equation at the doctor's office. You know, we just think that they're the dad and we don't include them, and they feel excluded. My husband, you know, they don't ask him, you know, what he wants when he's in at the doctor's office or in the hospital with me. And Montgomery County Public Health does a conference every year. I don't know about this year because we haven't done anything and it's breaking my heart. But we do the conference in September, the Everyone Reach One conference. So those are things that are free that you have to, you know, log in early to try to get a ticket because it sells out really, really fast, but not sells out. The tickets go away really quickly because of space size. But just some of those things are great events to attend to try to get information so that you can see people like us and hear real life stories and know that Tiffany's tangible. You can really touch her, you know, that she's really there to help you. It's not like you'll see her here and you'll never hear from her again. You know, as soon as you said you have a doula, I said, is it Denise or Tiffany? You know,
Right.
Tell me which one it is, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I said, I love Tiffany, you know, so I said, I'm well connected in this infant mortality world. We become a family. And I think that, it needs to be bigger. I mean, we just have to get the education out there.
We do.
Can I add a resource? So I'll just note that I used to work for public health for almost 3 years as the fetal infant mortality review coordinator. I just left last June to, you know, focus on doula work in my family more full time. But when I worked there, I had a good relationship with Dayton Children's Hospital, and they have his name is Tom O'Neill. And he helps families who have lost their babies. He like does the footprints, and he'll come over to the home.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
It's beautiful. And he brings it to you himself because he's really sweet. Yes.
And then they also have counseling, or you can talk to them. They used to have a group session, but they stopped it because they said they weren't getting a lot of participants, but they still have one-on-one options for you to talk to someone.
He's full of resources, Tom O'Neill is. So he's the one that kind of gave me some of those. Heal, maybe somebody, I don't know. No, Heal was through a friend, but he does have resources. He knows a lot of people and a lot of things. So
what I need to do is when I go to edit this, if I could get some of that information from you all, and I can post it in the description. Sister Andrea, I wanted to talk now about as a father, you know, going into this whole situation. It's a stressful situation, and it's made even more stressful because you feel like you're at odds with the very people who are supposed to be helping you. You feel like you're in a fight with them. As a father, you know, going into the situation, into the hospital, for instance, you know, you see, you know, there's certain procedures and things that you see that I guess the nurses and doctors have to do, but it seems like they're putting the woman in a painful situation. And so, you know, it's like one of these situations where we, as men, we really need a doula, and we need to really understand what they're doing themselves, because I don't know, some of these people could be sadistic. We just don't know, you know, and that's keeping it real. But from your vantage point, you know, when we go into these situations, for instance, on the day of birth, you know, the families come in, and already when white people see a large group of Black people, there's already that tension that is not there with a large group of white people. So can you speak to that a little bit about the healthcare system and how the healthcare system is designed really to see Black people as a threat? And as I think a person had said, that they believe that we can endure more pain and therefore don't get the necessary health care that we should. And I think you all probably know about the Serena Williams story. But yeah, if you could talk on that.
Yeah, so the first thing that I wanted to say is just to add a resource. I after I gave birth, wanted to become a doula, and I unfortunately did not know Tiffany at that time. There is a small organization in Cincinnati called the Mothership, and it is run by a woman named Momma. And a part of her vision is to create an entire network of Black women that support Black women through birth. Because that's the way we used to do it. That's how we catch our babies. And an environment of love and acceptance from the people who and maybe some people who birthed you, right? That legacy of how we support people through that process. And a part of her vision, I wasn't able to finish that training at that time, but that seed was planted for such a time as this. And so I'm grateful for that. But a part of her vision is incorporating fathers into that entire process all along, from preconception, if you're able to secure services, then all the way through the process of birth and after. Because you're absolutely right. Like the entire time, that partner, that male partner or what have you, is seen as secondary to the process. And yet we wonder why we try to incorporate our fathers after the fact, right? It's happening with them, to them, just as much as it's happening with us and to us. So I can share a little bit about what it is to have a partner who is experiencing this issue in front of you. And the situation that you describe is actually exactly what happened when I was giving birth to my son. I have a wife. We were not married at the time. That was already something that caused me to have a ton of anxiety, because I was going in giving birth as a woman who had a female partner who was white. And so people didn't know who she was. And I was always kind of having to explain myself and constantly having to come out. And that was very challenging for me. But in the middle of me experiencing this situation where they'd over medicated me and then they had to stop my labor suddenly, my partner is watching me and I'm dissociated. I'm completely out of my body. They're just moving my body around. And it wasn't until weeks later that she finally had that breakdown of, I literally thought that you were dying in front of me. And she's a white woman, and she had more agency to speak on that, even in the moment, than our Black people do, our Black men do. I was talking to this doctor in California. I was talking to him about how he's responding, how maternal and infant care is changing in relation to the current crisis. And it's interesting because Tiffany knows that a lot of times when we talk about that crowd of Black people, that crowd of support, when you are able to have a mom who has a lot of support, our families get told, well, only so many people in the birthing room. I'm sorry, you can't record. I'm sorry, so there's so many extra restrictions that are already put on us that are not put on other people. And now we're in a situation where everyone is having to experience some of those restrictions, right? Where people are having to go through the births alone. And that is an additional stressor to this other parent who has been so disconnected from the process. So it's one of those things where I think that we have medicalized childbirth. We've made a medical procedure out of something that is a natural phenomenon.
Right.
And when we talk about what's natural, it's easy to say, okay, these two people created this life together in love, through what have you. These two people created this life through a natural process, and then we'll go through receiving that life in a natural way. But we don't have that perspective. We have a very clinical perspective, and we have the perspective that, frankly, is based on profit. Our healthcare system is not really a healthcare system. It is a business. Our insurance companies are not healthcare insurance. They are literally businesses structured in a capitalist system to make money. So when you think of it that way, you recognize that, yes, this natural process was made for me. This system, however, was not. And it is not just the healthcare system. It's a system of profiting off of our bodies in general. And so when we go into those birthing rooms, we are with strangers a lot of times, even though if I've chosen my doctor, the nurses that are attending me, I don't know them. There are people that I don't know, that I don't trust. that are representatives of a system or an entity that I don't trust. And so the stress there is palpable. They don't trust us and we don't trust them. So I can say just from that perspective, that the doctor I was talking to said that one of his pushes was to educate his staff to prevent what he called those micro traumas that happen all throughout that process that can sometimes lead to a traumatic situation down the road, that lead to us being having what we call that intervention cascade, because nobody asked us if we wanted Pitocin on top of that other induction medication that we got. And so then we went into uterine hypersensitivity. And then after that, oh, now you need an emergency C-section. And what is an emergency C-section?
Right.
It's surgery. And so that's putting mom and baby in increased risk.
Right.
And if you don't trust me in this space to know what's good for my body, and my partner is not able to speak up for what is good for us and what's good for our family or what have you, then you already put us at this increased risk to be traumatized, interventionized. You know what I mean? I know those aren't words, but to throw these helping behaviors at us that really put us at more risk and only profit the people who are getting paid from them.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
That's what I can say about that. And so having that doula, having that advocate, and then even outside of that, like I would love to see it, like I would love to see doulas become a part of our institution of birthing. And then also love at that next level, even if you don't want to receive that certification, having knowledge and understanding of birth support so that we can all be birth supporters, so that we can all understand what that is, because that's how we got here. People in our lives are giving birth all the time, so that we can have at least that basic level of knowledge. I think that when we go into the room that way and we focus outside of the delivery room on how do we educate ourselves before we go in there, how do we empower ourselves before we go in there, I want to have my doula, and then I also want to feel like I am at a certain level of knowing and understanding, so that everybody in the room is coming from a place of authority, is coming from a place of autonomy. I think that also is a part of how we change that process, because the master's tools won't dismantle the master's house, right? So
that's right.
we have to develop our own skill set. So we can't depend on that system to change. We can recognize that it's faulty, and then we can figure out how do we adapt and how do we tear down that system and how do we build something up in us. And a part of it, building that up in us, is building that conversation and just kind of building a new norm around how we deal with birthing families, and including the father in those things, or including the other partner.
Absolutely. I think that one of the things that we're looking at, and if you could speak on this, Sister Tiffany, is, as she's saying, it's a natural process. But since we live in a capitalistic society, they have made it to where, for instance, you will go in and the doctor will suggest a C-section where you may not even need a C-section, but because picking up that knife is an extra $1,000 or $2,000, then we're not gonna worry about the fact that you could have this birth naturally. We're gonna worry about our vacation to the Bahamas or something like that. So can you talk about a natural birth? Because before capitalism ramped up, women were having 5, 10 children, and and now one child is putting you in life's in at risk of losing your life.
Unfortunately, going into the hospital as a Black woman in labor is very scary, because there are women who don't come back out, and men, fathers who leave with a newborn baby, hopefully, and no woman to help take care of the baby as it was planned. And so as someone who had a unplanned C-section, my first baby, and knowing that I felt like I shouldn't have had that C-section, but then again, coming to a point where I had to accept, like, I consented because, I definitely didn't say no. And just knowing that I was a part of a decision at that time that I felt was best, and just trying not to, because, I did harper on that a long time, like trying to go back in time and, what could I have done differently, but there were a lot of things at play. My water broke randomly at 36 weeks. My baby was 4 pounds when she came out. She was in distress when I was in in labor. I mean, I had a short umbilical cord. So there were things that happened, but I knew I wanted to have more kids. And I knew that one C-section didn't mean that I had to keep getting all these C-sections. And so that to me meant that, I, want a natural birth, like I didn't have any medication with the first labor. I labored that whole 20 plus hours before that C-section without any medication. Because I knew that's what I wanted. I didn't want to introduce anything into my body. I wasn't aware of how that would impact my unborn fetus. And I didn't want to, I knew that I could do it. And I didn't even have a doula my first time. But, there are women, as a doula now, and, when I help women prepare for their labor and we make their birth plans, and, most of them go in with the, intentional, wanting to have a natural labor, but it's very frustrating for me as a doula to maintain a professional level when interacting with some of the medical staff members, because it infuriates me that people have to fight to have a baby naturally.
Right.
And when I say fight, I mean fight. I mean, every little thing. And it is stressful and it is nerve-wracking because I feel, and, not to feel like they couldn't have done it without me, but I felt like if I wasn't there to see things that they couldn't see, things would have happened to them that they did not want.
Right.
And that is sad. I've been a doula to more than just Black moms. And I can hands down say that my Black moms have to fight in a different way than the white moms do. And I hate that happens at the same hospitals with the same practice, the same doctors.
Right.
The same. I'm like, I just was at a birth that you did.
Right.
And I don't understand why it's different today. Like you could take pictures last week. 5 people would come in a room last week, but now it's only 2. Like, I don't understand that. And so, when it comes down to the natural labor, there are systems in place. Like they have, the little epidural thing in the room already.
Right.
And so, you have to keep reminding them that, I want a natural labor. And then they'll come in and they'll try to get close to the mom where I can't see it and say like,
it's okay.
You don't have to do this.
We can call.
You don't have to do this. You do not have to do this. That is why God made medicine. And I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
And so, it's just trying to, but I have to remind them, one, I can't speak for you, but I've already prepared them. When we get in here, there are going to be people who will try to give you medication. And I'm not saying that you don't get it, but I'm telling you that this is how I'm going to prepare to honor your wishes. You said you didn't want the medication. So I'm going to challenge you and I'm going to push you. And the partner is on board. And if her mom is coming, Mama, we all meet. We all meet. We're a team. So before the baby comes, I'm everybody's doula. We always talk, I want to know, Dad, how do you want to show up at the birth? What are you afraid of? Like what role do you want to have? Grandma, if you're coming, what do you want to do in the room? And we all have a role. So sometimes, she want Dad to hold the foot and I'm holding the hand and Grandma giving her the ice chips. And that's just what we're doing. And we're working together and we're all keeping our eyes peeled and we're taking shifts. And so, and then I always allow Mom the space to decide. So if there is not an emergency, I asked the person, does she have a minute to speak alone to, figure out what she wants to do? Can you come back? Because sometimes they make things so rushed. And it's like, oh my God, if you don't do it right now, everybody's going to die. No. So let's pause, because if it's not an emergency, then we can have a minute to deliberate and figure out what we want to do.
Yes.
But I just, we make birth plans and we use those to help communicate our wishes for how we want our birth to go. I highly encourage women, who have had a C-section to not just sign up for the repeat surgery, because you don't have to. I had a baby vaginal. My son came out of, me vaginally, and I had a C-section the first time, and he was natural.
Because that's what they'll tell you, won't they?
Exactly. Yeah. I even left. Unfortunately, I left a practice that I really wanted to go to because, it was someone that I had been supportive of for years. But once I had that first C-section, I knew that like she wasn't what I needed to have this second baby. So I had to leave and find people who did VBACs all the time, and there wasn't going to be a fight when it came. Because, sometimes doctors, they'll get you. They'll start off by saying everything you want to hear. Oh, yeah, we do water births. Oh, my, yes, we do lotus births. We do all of that. Yes, yes, yes. And then you get to 35 weeks and they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to. And at that point, what pregnant woman at 35 weeks wants to go try to find a new doctor and your baby could come any day? Like,
what new doctor wants to take you?
So then at that point, you're doctorless and you're just showing up at the hospital getting a resident who doesn't know anything.
Like me the last time,
And they're terrible because started on the residents.
They're better practicing. And don't go like around July 1st when the shifts change. Now they got the new students in.
Yes. And everybody. That's another thing, in addition to that, you have to prepare, if you want a natural birth, you have to prepare for like, what if you do get a resident? Or what if you get a doctor that you haven't met before, who doesn't know your plan, who doesn't know you?
Even from the same practice.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Everyone is not different. Everyone is different. They all operate differently. And they all have a different tactic. I had a birth where this mom was having a VBAC. She had her first kid maybe 15 years prior. So it was a while, and she was adamant on having her VBAC and she was natural. And I will never forget how the resident came into the room with this paper, some document, and shoved it in her face and said, you do know that by going through with this vaginal birth after having a C-section, that you and your baby are at risk for dying. You're putting your baby at risk and you could just get a C-section. Literally in her face.
Right.
And and that's when I had to step in because I said, well, how is that going to be effective?
And see, this is something that
her is ridiculous.
Yeah, and this is something that white people have no concept of. They don't have any idea, because why should they? Why would they have any idea about this? Because they're not. These type of treatments are not minted out to them the way that they are to us. We're in a totally different world when it comes down to so many things on so many different levels, and childbirth is one. And this is why this is pretty disgusting when you have a system like this that doesn't, even value the life of any woman that is non-white, because this is not an issue that is just affecting the Black man and Black woman. This also affects the Native American man and the Native American woman, and also the Latino brothers and sisters out there as well.
And it stretches across any economic status you can imagine, because what they try to do is say, oh, it's the teen moms, or oh, it's the poor moms. But here's the thing. Some of the things that these women experienced when I was their doula happened to me, and I'm a doula. Yes. With my son, I had to fight for it. They wouldn't change my sheets. I called to get my sheets changed after delivering my son, and they told me, do you want a fitted or a top sheet? And I was like, what? I need some sheets because I just had a baby and I'm bleeding. Like, what do you need? Or they came in my room at 1 o'clock in the morning and told me that kids weren't allowed and expected me to wake up my sleeping husband to take our toddler home. What was I going to do at 1 a.m., barely 24 hours after having a new baby? And so those kind of things, I had 2 insurances, so it doesn't
matter.
My economic status, my educational level, it's this skin. That's it.
Right.
That's part of this is what it is. It's this, and that's sad, and I hate that. And it pains me, it infuriates me, but that's why I'm a doula. Because I want to make sure that my sisters don't have to go through that. And if I can help it, I will fight and I will be there and we will figure it out.
That's right. And I put up a little a thing on the screen talking about maternity mobility by educational attainment. It don't matter, as you were saying, it don't matter as far as the education or the money that you may have. Once again, going back to the Serena Williams situation, where, I'm pretty sure she's pretty wealthy. We all know that.
Yeah,
and she's famous. So all of these factors, none of them helped her in that situation where she had to tell the doctor that she was feeling a certain type of way and that they wouldn't respond appropriately to her pain. And so this is a situation where I think that we really need to begin to come together, because when you have a breakdown of family, or when you're not able to protect the family, then you are in real serious trouble. And I'm talking to Black men right now, that we need to make sure that we are there supporting our wives, our girlfriends, our woman, whatever the situation may be, that we need to be there to support and not abandon, our responsibility of bringing a new life into the world, a new life that will be a reflection of us and that will carry us on to the future. We need to be more involved, definitely as Black men. One of the things that I wanted to put up another chart, and this chart was unbelievable, and it talked about, let me see if I can find it here. It talked about, here we go, and hopefully I'll take this one on down, and I'm gonna put this chart up. I want you all just to see this chart. I don't know if you can see it on your end, but this chart basically talks about where Black women lie, that as far as industrial accidents, Black mothers, it says, this is what, number 5, logging workers, the deaths, fishers and related fishing workers, aircraft pilots, roofers, and then Black mothers, so this is definitely a crisis that's taking place here. Let's go ahead as we wrap it up and just get into some solutions now. And Sister Andrea, you want to go first with some solutions that can help us make it through this whole process?
So I can say, from the mental health perspective,
yes,
increasing our conversation about mental health in the Black community, because a lot of us are depressed and anxious before we get pregnant. Have PTSD before we get pregnant, and we have done I've seen phenomenal growth in our community, and I'm excited to see it grow in terms of normalizing the fact it's not about claiming things that that maybe don't belong to you. It's not that. We have to change that narrative. Just like you take your insulin for your diabetes and you watch your sugar and that kind of stuff, there are things that we have to watch in terms of how we take care of our minds. Our brain is an organ, and it functions that way. And so increasing our knowledge, understanding, and destigmatizing mental health and allowing us to receive services that empower us, I think will, first of all, allow us to come from a place of empowerment when it is time for us to stand up for ourselves. So doing that before and after. I know Miss Tiffany and Miss Kortni will be able to speak on this much more, but just touching on it just in general, increasing our understanding about what happens with our bodies, with our friends' bodies, with our sisters' bodies when we are pregnant, when we're gestating, before we get pregnant. Focusing on how we treat our bodies and how we treat ourselves. And this is not to say that it's our responsibility that we're going into the delivery room and not coming back out, but it is to say that when we develop intimate relationships with our bodies, we become the expert. We become the expert. You can tell me about a human body as a doctor, but you can't tell me about my body because I've been living. Right. So I'm telling you that something's not right. And so cultivating that intimate relationship with self, I think, is something that it might sound abstract or it might sound like a gray area, but I think that it could have some concrete results for us. And that's pretty much what I would say. Understanding what our resources are, they're popping up. I know Montgomery County just received over $3 million, just funneled over $3 million into this new initiative. And that $3 million was split between 6 different organizations that are targeting like 4 different standpoints that are all related to birth. So fathers, focusing on fathers, focusing on the faith perspective and bringing ministers and other faith workers into the birthing process, and then some money through public health. So just doing our research and then sharing those resources and understanding that we're all in this together. Building a community, understanding that in Montgomery County we don't have some of the resources that we need, and yet we're the highest in the top 9 counties for infant and maternal mortality in Ohio, which is one of the highest in the nation. So just I think right now what we're seeing is this push toward networking and connecting, building collectives, building collaboratives. So people not being afraid, like myself, to say, I'm not the expert in the room, but I'm in the room, right? I want to be in the room and learn from the other people in it, and to not say, well, that's for somebody else, because it's for all of us. Our lives, our Black lives cannot matter if our births don't matter.
That's right.
So understanding that, sometimes just being ourselves in the space is activism, so not exempting ourselves from that and saying, I can't get involved everywhere, but I can get involved somewhere. And at some point, those connections are going to link back up to this larger initiative that is to support us all and to support our community and to support our moms, our dads, and our babies, to just do basic things like continue to live past the age of 1, or continue to be able to bring our babies home. It's that basic, but it's that fundamental. And I think that our solutions can be too. They can be as fundamental as our issue is.
Now, can anyone, and if you would like to even speak on it, can anyone talk about insurance and how that impacts this whole process as well? Because, go ahead.
One of the things that I can say is our system, we have this perception that our system is standardized in a way that it's not. It's so completely arbitrary and random, from one carrier to the next, from one state to the next, from one employer to the next. And I think that that can get very overwhelming very quickly when you're in the middle of also being stressed about your job, and now I'm on bed rest or what have you, right? So first of all, I think that we can as we have to navigate this system currently until we're able to change it, just kind of increase our knowledge base about what it is. But I think one of the interesting things about giving birth in our current system is that you are funneled into very few options based on who will provide coverage for you. So if you have Medicaid, but what type of Medicaid do you have? Because we don't do Molina, we only do Buckeye and CareSource, and so that kind of wears you down.
Right.
It wears you down because from the beginning, somebody else is making choices for you that are completely random. So now I don't have all the doctors at my disposal. Now I have 6. Okay. And 2 of them was funny when I first went for my first appointment, and one of them said something awkward, one of them said something homophobic. So now I'm down to 4. So it doesn't matter if they can support my birth plan or not. I have 4 people that I can choose from who's still taking patients. So it's not always as fatalistic as that. I don't mean to paint this picture that it's just this horrible time being a pregnant person or being a mom, but it is very challenging, and insurance is a part of that challenge. The only way that I can think of going around that is first of all recognizing that doctors are not the only people that have to deliver our babies, and hospitals aren't the only people that can handle our children. And we have to have a paradigm shift around that. Because a lot of people who are in the medical profession don't want that to be the narrative that we have. But we do have midwives.
Right.
Okay?
We can
birth from home.
Yes, you can.
And birthing center. Like, we can kind of work around that. But even if we're working within it, I think just becoming knowledgeable about the fact that even within that, there are so many different options. Like Ms. Kortni was talking about, they might send that back. That's okay. Submit it again. So even some of our other people who are not medical professionals and not birth support, but say, hey, but I do insurance, or I am familiar with HR, so then I can join the conversation and help people navigate that. So business people should be a part of our network of birth supporters, because then they can help us as birthing people, or people who are advocating for birthing people, navigate this often very confusing, very frustrating system.
Absolutely.
Can I say, I was just going to say
Yes.
about the insurance. One of the biggest things is that, we need to start planning for things. We can't wait until someone passes and now we think about what's going to happen, when they die. So, I think as a community, we need to work on planning, because here's the thing, when I got pregnant, I knew, okay, I'm gonna get pregnant again. So if we have a baby, then we might want to switch to your insurance from my insurance, because your insurance isn't high deductible and everything is covered. So it helped us think about, okay, because my insurance, I had to pay for things out of pocket, and my husband's insurance is no deductible. Babies is boom, it's all good. You don't pay nothing extra. And they took certain doctors. So because we thought about that, okay, are we gonna get pregnant the next year? Just in case, we need to plan and think about which insurance. And everyone used to call me HR when I worked for the county, because when it was time for open enrollment, it was the whole thesis time. I fine-toothed every line on that insurance. I wanted to understand what my rights were. I wanted to know what was covered. I went to all the meetings that they had at the office to understand, okay, so if this happens, then I pay this, or, what kicks in and what percentage. So we really need to do our due diligence on reading those fine lines on that insurance, because sometimes we think things are covered. They talk about, in all of those policies, it tells you about progesterone, even that kind of stuff. If you want to do some life-saving measures and the baby is born really early, it talks about if they'll pay for that kind of stuff. So we need to just start planning and just reading. We got to read. We need to ask questions. And even if it makes you uncomfortable, don't nod if you don't know. Say you don't know, and it's okay. Who cares if you don't know? Don't be afraid to say you don't know or you don't understand, because we can't keep nodding and going through with things. And then they didn't know, they didn't do anything. You said yes. And so, owning what our responsibility and our role is. And with insurance, it could be real tricky, because everything is on them extra papers with a whole bunch of lines. And I know it's tedious to read through all of that, but you really got to know what you're signing up for, because you're paying for it. So, reading those policies and knowing what coverage you're getting, and planning if you can. If you can't, that's fine. But still knowing what your insurance covers. You got to know what it covers.
And like you said, I mean, the whole thing's a racket. When you talk about insurance, it's a racket, and it don't matter what you have insurance on. You have insurance on your house. As soon as a tree falls on it, they'll tell you that, well, we didn't really cover you for that.
Tornado.
That was an act of God. So
So the whole system.
What you mean, act of God? Right.
So the whole system is so messed up. But I think that once again, this is a natural process. And I think that if we learn this process of natural birth, the more we learn it, the more that we can become independent of this system that is really, it values, of course, the dollar over life. And we can see that now because of what they want to do as far as this early release of quarantine. And they don't have a vaccine. They don't, but who knows if they're even telling the truth, period. But one of the things that we do know in this case, and even in the case of this COVID-19 coronavirus, is that as a people, we must begin to learn how to eat to live. We must begin to learn how to properly take care of this temple that we call our body. Of course, being in the nation, I got, you all probably can see it in the back there, how to eat to live. And we definitely need to know how to eat to live. But so some more solutions. And I'll say, as a black man, when the mother of my children were having their child, I did a lot of research. I was researching herbs to take to relax the woman. I was researching the different lotions that you could rub on to prevent, if possible, stretch marks, everything like that. I mean, as men, we should learn as much about pregnancy as the woman knows herself, so that we can be there to support her through this whole thing, and also to try to the best of our ability make sure that she's in a peaceful environment. As men, we have to be protectors. For instance, and I don't know, you all might think it's funny, but even watching certain things on television, as men, we should protect our woman who is pregnant from watching certain things. None of that Freddy kills Jason, or none of that scary stuff, because these are all chemicals that are flushed into producing our children. So
even going to funerals. No, I didn't go to any funerals when I was pregnant.
I want to go back to just like on the insurance piece. Personally, when I had my last son in 2018, if you remember, we were going through the United Healthcare insurance issues with Premier and the hospitals.
Oh my God, that was horrible.
So my first 3 children were born at a Premier hospital that I was very comfortable with. My 4th child, because of the practice that I was with, we had to go to a Kettering Network hospital. Nothing against either one. First went fine. However, I was most comfortable at the Premier. So with my last son, I wanted to have him because Kettering was a trigger for me, since I lost a baby that, even though I delivered fine at Kettering, it just was a whole nother. I'm like, if I go back there, just my mind was playing all these tricks on me. So I wanted to go back to Premier where everything was fine. So I say that to say I was stuck because we had United Healthcare, even though we had researched and we knew what our insurance was going to provide and we knew what we wanted to do. We found ourselves in a situation where we had no option to go to Premier at the time. So that was a stressor on me, my pregnancy, because my anxiety and stress level was through the roof because I knew that I couldn't go where I wanted to go. And it was so unfair to me because I had plans. I knew I had insurance. What do you mean I can't have a baby at the hospital? I want to have a baby at the hospital, where I wanted to deliver. And I remember just that stress of just a hospital, like that simple of a hospital. But then, to God be the glory, the situation changed in United Healthcare. We delivered July 6th, but I was able to deliver where I wanted to. However, now I'm stuck with all these residents because my doctor cannot come to that hospital to deliver a baby. So for 9 months, I was comfortable with my OBGYN, who now I'm literally in the parking lot of this restaurant. My doctor's like, go to the hospital. I'm like, okay. I'm in the parking lot crying because I know I'm not going to her hospital. And I call my husband and I call my mother, like, what do I do? My husband's like, go to where you want to go. I'm like, but they don't know me, and I'm going to. So just that whole thing about a daggone hospital was, I'm getting ready to deliver my baby, literally. And I'm stressing about going to this hospital. And my husband's telling me we're going here. And my heart is saying I need to go where my doctor said go. But I really wanted to go where I wanted to go. So it's just all those things that just you don't even think of. And I had just left the doctor's office to go deliver because my blood pressure was high. I had never had high blood pressure either. None of my pregnancies ever. I'm advanced maternal age. I was 39. But I had never had any high blood pressure issues. That day I show up at the doctor's office. She's like, your blood pressure is a little high. Well, come to find out, my daughter, who had passed a year before, 2 years before, she was born July 9. Well, here we are, July 6. And I'm nervous because I'm thinking about her. Even though subconsciously I'm not really, we were talking about her. My doctor knew, they were there through my law. So we were kind of in the doctor's office talking about, Shiloh's birthday was coming up and, but that was part of my anxiety. And I knew I didn't want to deliver on her birthday, this new baby. So all those things are affecting my insides to where now my blood pressure is high. And now I'm going to go deliver this baby at this place where these people have never seen me with this pregnancy, know nothing. They try to tell me I'm not dilated. You know, we got a whole bunch of other issues, you know, then they're asking me questions that I feel like they shouldn't be asking me. And I'm telling them, like Andrea said, about my body. If you break my water, I'm going to deliver here in about 5 minutes. I'm telling you, break my water, we will have a baby here in 5 minutes. Oh, no, you won't. You're not even. You break my water, we're going to have a baby. You know, I've had 4 children before this. I'm telling you, every time my water broke, it's boom. That's just how my body works.
Right.
They break my water, we have a baby. You know, so I'm, you know, but she wouldn't listen. They would not listen to me. They weren't prepared. They're like, oh, she's ready. I've been telling y'all that. You know,
right.
It's just my resolution is to educate yourself, find someone who will educate for you, advocate for yourself. Self-advocacy is really big in this world, rather for your job, for your kids, for your rent, if they want to raise it, you know, the loan interest on your mortgage payment, whatever it is, your car,
your salary, all of that, negotiate.
It's all about what you want. And like you said, it's negotiable. We can talk about it. Everything's not an emergency where everybody, you know, we have to go now. I understand sometimes stat is stat. And when y'all need to go, go. You know, sometimes those C-sections are life or death, baby, mom, whoever it is. But a lot of times it's just, oh, well, you know, like I said, you want to push 4 births out. You're only here till 6 and you need that mama to deliver because you got to go, you know. So a lot of times that's what it is. And because we're not educated enough to know, because I'll ask coming in, what's your shift? What time you get off? You 3 or 7, you know, you know, I'm asking up front, you know, so I can know if my nurse, because you get that nurse and it's 5 o'clock and she get off at 7. She not paying you, and you only dilate at 1. She's not going to listen to you, you know. So it's just a matter of just educate, find someone to be an advocate for you. Just ask questions. I tell my parents when I work in that field, I volunteer in that field, I'm just, you know, ask questions, ask the question. You don't have to know. Go home and research it. You got a smartphone. Google will tell you.
And it can do everything. Yes. Could you do it for everything else?
You got resources at your fingertips. Use them. You know, there's no stupid question. I don't know all the answers. The doctors don't know all the answers. You know, your friends don't. So just ask whoever you can and get as many answers. Write down your questions when you're going to the doctor. Don't try to remember, because pregnancy brain, even my brain here, you know, it's so much trying to go and process. Right. So write your questions down. So the next time that you go, you have those available. And, you know, pediatricians are very important, because you don't realize that even though you've had the baby, my goal was to get my daughter here healthy and safe. And I did just that. But you have to go to a year and beyond. So your pediatrician choice is important. Very, very, very important. My pediatrician, he is amazing. He's an advocate. He supported us. He understood. They don't get any better than him. And, you know, he knows who he is. So, you know, but
and I know we got the same pediatrician.
He's just amazing. You know, just those things are very important. And I think parents need to just look at those things as well, not just the pregnancy, but the after. And if somebody doesn't necessarily agree with what you believe, you can change. You have the right to make a change. So, you know, research.
So to begin to wrap it up, let's concentrate now on just the baby and the baby's health to make sure the baby lives past that first year. What are some of the steps? Of course, you all know that I've been talking breastfeeding. But I think, of course, we do know that that's very important, because I got this, let me see if I can find another chart that talks about breastfeeding. And let me see if I can find it here, and how much I guess the nutrients, here it goes. I'll share this chart with you all. Get this thing ready. And I want to let you all know this is like the first one that we've done on this, you know, because of this shelter in place and everything. So it's a learning curve. But
I think it's going well.
Not too
well,
bad.
And so my technology was a little rough. Right?
Oh, but so I don't know if you all can see that it says breast milk has more of the good things babies need. And it talks about the antibodies, the antiviruses, the hormones. But if anyone could talk on the importance of breastfeeding, but as you were saying, not all mothers may be able to breastfeed. So, but if you could talk on that and some and what they can do to possibly, still have, I don't know, I'll let
some
you
of the
just talk
benefits.
on it.
Well, I can go first. Yeah, I mean, I've been breastfeeding for almost 5 years. If you consider, I had my daughter in 15, and I breastfed her through my second pregnancy, and then when my son came, and I've been breastfeeding him. He turned 2 yesterday, and he's still going strong. Breastfeeding. What I think that people need to understand is we have to be honest about breastfeeding, and it's not easy. It's definitely something that takes a lot of work, a lot of patience, and it is a lot of sacrifice. If you think about us as women, we've been pregnant for 9 months, then we had to endure child labor, and then now our bodies are being used to sustain a whole human life for a year and beyond. And so it is a lot of time, and it is stressful. And one of the things that I want to recognize is that I have a husband who is very supportive of me and making sure that our kids are breastfed. But not only that, I've had some privileges that I have to acknowledge in terms of being able to sustain that. Like my first child, I didn't go back to work, for 18 months, and I just was at home with her. So our breastfeeding journey looked different than me and my son because I did have a full-time job and I had to pump. Luckily, I worked at a position that I had my own office. I had the privacy. I had a refrigerator. I worked for an office, and I advocated for myself. Like, I know I got a meeting, but this is my pump schedule, and I'm not missing my pump. So if I got to miss the meeting, I'm missing it because I work in maternal and child health, and I have a baby at home, and breastfeeding is a priority for me. So that's that, but I was able to articulate that at work, and I had the luxury of a job that understood that, and I didn't have to feel stressed about whether or not I can maintain my breastfeeding. And every day for lunch, I went to go nurse my son at daycare because that was another priority for me. But those are not things that all women have access to. And so we do have to acknowledge that some women go back to jobs that barely follow the federal guidelines for breastfeeding on allowing them to have those breaks.
Trying to pump that from and the toilet and the
exactly. And that is when we notice that breastfeeding doesn't look the same or it doesn't carry on because it's too stressful. But if we, it is really beautiful. It takes time, it takes patience. And I always tell my moms, like, you've never breastfed before. So why do you think the baby just pop on? It's perfect. No, you have to learn. The baby has never breastfed before. You are learning together. And I think if we just kind of slow down, I think our society forces us to go back to normal so fast. And I just really wish that we could remind ourselves, like, hey, I just had a baby. Like, I just went through a lot of things. This baby just came out. This baby has not been here before. And we need time. And so taking that time, those first 2 or 3 months to like just slow down because all the baby needs is breast milk and sleep and and that's it. And so, just taking your time and not, beating yourself up. It's not going to look perfect. And not being afraid to ask for help from someone else, that breastfed, from your partner, hey, I'm thirsty, I need some water, or I'm hungry, I'm tired. Like developing a schedule, communicating with whoever your support person is. Like, okay, if I feed the baby, then you change the baby, or coming up with a system to make it work because it can be taxing. And so those are my things. I mean, I think that you can make it work. Sometimes we think our supply is not there. But it is. Do not allow other people to stop your journey. My own mom, she didn't breastfeed. And so, it was foreign to her. And she was embarrassed if I were breastfeeding in public, even if I had a cover on. And so, but not allowing her opinions on breastfeeding to stop me, because I knew that's what I was doing. But some people you know, they are very persuaded by their family members, and they might stop if it makes them uncomfortable. So just, you know, you know, just like reminding people like it's okay. Like you were talking about toddlers. Toddlers still need breast milk too, and you know, family members look at you crazy if a 2-year-old walk up to you and sit down and get ready to get some milk. It's like, why are you mad? You know, like it's still a little baby and they still need it. And you know, and there's nothing wrong. You know, like we're not crazy. We're not pedophiles or anything.
It's not for us. It's not sexual.
Trust me. I would rather my body not have to go through all the tugging and fighting and pulling and my shirt's droopy. I'm leaking in public. It's a whole bunch of things, you know. But I think we just need to rally around breastfeeding women. Yeah. When we see somebody out breastfeeding, encourage her. Get her something to drink. Get her something to eat. You know, help her out. If the thing fly off for the baby, like don't shame her. Don't look at her crazy. Don't do any of that. Encourage her. Rally around her because that's a big job. Breastfeeding is tough.
It's tough. I agree. And I want to piggyback off Tiffany with that. That's so true. That's so true.
I agree. I think just recognizing that our bodies have multiple functions, especially when we talk about breasts, because they're very sexualized and they're very political. It's amazing that that's the case, but it is. So when it comes to, I think that the thing that stuck for me was, yes, it's really hard. And a lot of times, like the lactation support that you get in the hospital is just that one visit. My baby before that lady showed up. So we had to figure this thing out because he had already been born and it took her a couple hours or so, half a day.
Don't have a baby on the weekend because they really
right, probably because she didn't assume I was going to breastfeed. And so coming as an adoptee, my mother didn't breastfeed. None of my family members breastfed. So I was the first person to do it. So again, when we talk about the cultural conversation, it's fine when your babies are really little. I mean, it's new for people. It's new for them when you start to lack shame because you're at the point where you're like, I'm feeding my baby. I'm proud of this. And I really don't have time to navigate this blanket for your comfort when I'm trying to feed my child. And so when you let go of that initially, it's an adjustment, but they can do it when they're like 3 months old. But my baby happened to have grown. He's very long. And so he looked older than he was, but he was still my baby. And this is my choice. But people start to tell you, really, they feel very comfortable saying, well, isn't it about time for him to
time?
How long are you planning on doing that?
He can eat food, can he? Regular food. Why he?
And so there's a lot of shaming then because then somebody's telling you, no, your breast should go back to the function that's just enjoyment for others. That is just, you know, and so it's like it turns this corner from being life-giving and life-affirming to then being something that's shameful. Why are you breastfeeding this baby who is now a toddler, who we have decided with no basis, no empirical evidence, no evidence base, we have decided that it's enough, that this is far enough, that this baby is not getting anything from this anymore. And so then who is benefiting from it? And then people assume it's you. And so I think I like to see that we are breastfeeding more. We're having more of a conversation around some of the difficulties around and being honest. Some women don't produce the milk that they need to. You know, there are people who would love to breastfeed and they can't. There are people who make a lot of milk and they make their milk available. So maybe milk donations can be available to moms who need it. There are moms who have postpartum who make it as long as they can. You know, I have some people in my life who made it as long as they could. They made it 3 months. I said, girl, you gave him 3 months.
2 weeks, whatever it is.
That is a big one. Because my thing is, if you got to choose between, you know, whether or not the mom mentally can handle it. And like, I mean, I know I had a friend who was on the verge of suicide after having a baby. And I was like, girl, let's go get some formula because I would rather you be here to raise this baby than to try to force yourself to breastfeed. It's not, you know, like you got to pick. You know, I'm all for it, but I don't need you to be, you know, on the edge like that because you're not getting the breastfeeding. Like that's a lot.
See, that happened with me with my last one, personal, because I was stressed from the loss. So when I had him, my milk was not I mean, I know better, but I'm finger Greeking and eating peanut butter. I mean, everything in the world. And I'm stressed to the max. And now I'm on high blood pressure medicine because remember now I have high blood pressure, and that I have to choose between a certain medication because I want a nurse. And then I'm at home arguing with my husband because I'm like, I have to breastfeed. What do you mean? He's like, no, a fed baby is okay for it. I'm like, no, we plan to breastfeed. And so, but finally, after just, continuing to nurse and put the baby on the breast to try to make sure whatever he got was going to be enough, I was just going to force myself to try to figure it out. But it worked out in the end to where we're still nursing. He'll be 2 in July. But, you go to nighttime feedings. People just don't understand. It's not all day. We're not sitting up here. Right. There's a toddler. There's nighttime feedings. There's, comfort just if they don't feel well. And typically a toddler's only nursing for about 5 minutes, if that long, because they just need enough to just get a little quench and comfort of being with their mother. And my sons are not attached. They've all been breastfed and they can't stand me. They don't pay me any attention. So it's not the stereotypes that child will never leave you, and that's
what's wrong with a child wanting their mama? What's wrong with kids loving their mama? Like, I don't get that. Let them enjoy that, because when the world happens, when we get older, they gonna just be out there abused and hurt and wrong. Let's love on them. Let their mama keep them close.
To go off of what you all are saying too, I know that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was saying, that we need to bond our babies to a human being and not to some plastic. I mean, if that's a situation that you find yourself in, that you have to do that, that's completely understandable and nobody's judging. But if we are able to, we should try our best to breastfeed our babies, because there's so many different benefits from it, just beyond just the breast milk, that close and that warmth from the mother, of security in that baby, because we're just thinking now of the mother, but that baby also is all this is going through, making them to be the human beings that we would love for them to be. Postpartum depression is one of the things that we want to talk about, and as we close out.
I know. Sorry, we keep going.
Sorry, we need a whole episode on that.
Right, like this.
Yes, because we do know that some women, after childbirth, experience this postpartum depression for a number of different reasons that could be, special or peculiar to them. But Sister Kortni, one of the things that you talk about and advocate is going to see help, and yourself, Sister Andrea, mental health counseling.
Yes.
How important, and anybody can talk about this, after pregnancy, how important is that? Is that something that needs to take place, or?
It's critical. Well, for me, it was. For me,
in life period.
Yeah, in life period. But definitely, after my first child, I didn't think I was having depression, and I really didn't notice it much. But I was having like some anxiety, like really bad, and they call it postpartum anxiety, where I was like really fearful that something was going to happen to that baby. I was up watching the chest move, and or like when my husband would go to work, I would like lock us in the room by ourselves, like thinking somebody was going to harm us. Like it would be extreme things like that. But I definitely had childhood trauma from my upbringing that I didn't address, and so motherhood forced me to seek help to get through that trauma, because it was coming out, and I was like, I'm like, what is going on? Why am I feeling like this? And it was coming out. And so, it was a point where my daughter was almost 1. I'm like, why am I still like, she's about to be 1? And I remember I was driving, and I just was like envisioning driving off the road, just like, what if I just drifted over there? I was exhausted. I was tired. And so that's when I was like, I need to talk to someone. And so I got a counselor, and I've been seeing my, like a counselor ever since then. I go every 2 weeks. I love my sessions. I need them because it's really helping me get through things that I just never got through, and things that I locked in a box and never talked about. But I feel like, in order for babies to thrive, moms have to be okay. Parents have to be okay. Marriages have to be intact. Like you got it. It's like, you know, you need happy parents to have a happy baby. And so if you need to talk to someone, I encourage you to do that, and don't feel ashamed and don't feel any stigma on doing that, because your baby, you know, like they need you to be here. And so you need to do what you can to get well and be well and have your mind in a good space and not be afraid to ask for that help, because I'm not.
If I can add to that too, I think a part of that, so I work at Wright State, and I also am a therapist that I recently started at a counseling group that is specifically geared toward working with Black women. And a part of that is being able to see culturally competent services. So when we're talking about the resources that are out there, if anybody's watching or will watch and you're in the Montgomery County area, or now anywhere in Ohio, since we're doing telehealth, it's called Rise Counseling Group. The head clinician, the owner, her name is Deasia Thompson. She's fantastic, and she is completely geared toward she's completely geared toward providing those services from a womanist perspective that incorporates all of those intersections that we live at. Because I think that that's a part of why we don't engage in some help-seeking behaviors, is because we feel like at my most vulnerable, I don't want to put myself in a situation where the only person that I have to trust is somebody who doesn't understand my story. And it's not to say that you can only have somebody that looks like you, but sometimes it helps, and sometimes it helps to open the door when we are able to kind of come into it, if this is our first time, or if this is our 10th time going to therapy or seeking services, going into somebody that you already have that kind of, I don't have to explain certain things to you. I can just hit the ground running and start telling you that this is where my fear is, that I don't just have postpartum anxiety, like that it looks so different for every person. Mine was, I would just stay up and look at my son, and I was I was grieving the fact that he would one day be a Black man, and that he would probably be seen as a man a lot earlier than other people are seen as man. And my baby was big, I told you. So I'm like, you know, I was so fearful. I had postpartum. I was put on antidepressants. Again, just having that conversation, removing that stigma, starting the conversation as early as we can, so that we can develop that language, so that we can know our bodies, know our minds, watch for symptoms, be able to recognize when our symptoms come up, and not be ashamed of it, to say, okay, well, I recognize that self. That's my anxious self. So I know what to do with that because I've been given those tools. So I think that is essential. I think it's, as you said, Ms. Kortni, essential at all times. But I think after you give birth, it is just a whole different, you have absolutely
a new ball game. Even with a spouse, a partner, help, a mama, a friend, a brother who at your household. I'm a mother of 4 Black sons, and every day I cringe just at the thought of the statistics are against me, the numbers are against me, because I have 4 Black sons, period. Something good is not supposed to happen, you know, gonna happen, you know, bad is just the numbers say it's gonna happen. So it's just terrifying to me. But the just the thought of just whatever it is, even with help, you still need, it's okay. Even if you just go to talk, it doesn't hurt, you know, just go figure it out. Because sometimes you don't realize it's childhood or something making you react the way that you're acting. So
right. And Sister Denasia Thompson, Deasia. Yes. She was she was actually a panelist on one of our previous ciphers. But so as we close this out, we just want to I know Sister Tiffany, you might know what's some ways that definitely, and you all can answer this too, since we live in this quarantine space, some ways that a mother can keep herself safe. I know from just the what we're taught about washing hands and things like that, but can you speak any more on that?
Well, some people might not like my remedies, but you know, I'm not a big like medicine person. I don't take a lot of medication. I use a lot of natural herbs and roots and things like that. So every day I drink homemade ginger tea that I make. I take ginger root and I boil it, along with some cinnamon, some turmeric, garlic, and cayenne pepper. I put a little agave in there and some lime juice, and that's what I drink every morning. I get my husband some, my daughter drinks some. So that's like my immunity booster. I do take vitamins. I do take supplements. I'm primarily a plant-based eater, but you don't have to be, but that's just my preference. So that's also how I, prepare myself. We eat a lot of beans and a lot of vegetables. And I wash my hands a lot. My hands are dry. I wash them way too much.
Keep holding them down.
And I mean, like, I really have been quarantined, like my husband and I, like, we don't go anywhere. We walk around our neighborhood and we get exercise and outside, but I haven't physically been in a store since March 14th. So, I am taking it seriously for the sake of my kids. I haven't even allowed my mom or my parents in my home. Like, it's just me and the kids. His birthday was yesterday and we were on video chat, so I'm taking it seriously and I'm finding ways just to do other things outside of it. But, don't be afraid to just use some natural stuff, eat some vegetables, some raw, some kale, some spinach, drink a lot of water. I drink about 1 gallon of water a day. Spring water is my preference, but, drink water, plenty of it is good for you, good for your skin. It makes you feel good. Stay hydrated. Zinc is a good supplement to take. Vitamin D, since we don't get a lot of sun here. Vitamin C. I take I'm a multivitamin as well. Ginseng, ginkgo biloba, all of those are great, supplements to take, but at the minimum, drink some water, wash your hands, and get some ginger root. I really swear by ginger root. It's like the best thing ever.
It's delicious.
It's
nasty, but it's good for you.
It's so good for you. I'm telling you.
And then, like you said too, get outside, get some sun, get some fresh air. Don't stay inside too long. Definitely get some what is it, vitamin K from the sun or something like that.
Vitamin D.
Vitamin D.
Yep.
Definitely get outside and get some sun and get some fresh air as well. But then, like you said, just make sure that you don't put yourself in harm's way and get out into situations where you're not social distancing correctly. And they said 6 feet, but actually it's you need really more distance than that. So would anybody else like to touch on that? And then we'll close out with any last comments that you all may have.
Yeah, just briefly, I would like to address it from a mental health perspective because I think that we are all having our different processes around being in the house. I'm an introvert, so it's not, I did not anticipate that it was bothering me as much as it was. And so I had to develop my own relationship, just as we have to develop our relationships with our bodies, we have to develop our relationships with our minds. Understanding what you're putting into it, limiting our exposure to a lot of confusion and limiting our exposure to the news and trying to figure out what are the things in our lives that we do feel like we have some measure of control over and not going overboard, but making sure that we do realize that we do contribute to whatever our quality of life is right where we are right now. And I think this to me ties into that breastfeeding conversation, because one of the things that we did not talk about was you get a lot of physical properties in the milk, but one thing that breastfeeding does, that skin to skin contact with your child, is it regulates baby's nervous system. So mom and baby, you are providing the script for how that baby is going to respond to future stressors right in that moment. And it's not too late if your baby is older and past breastfeeding, or if you didn't breastfeed. So my last recommendation would be to find your children, however old they are, and to have some skin to skin contact with them, to hold them close. Don't be afraid of them. I think that it's interesting to me that as a community, we have so many different mental health issues, unresolved issues related to unresolved trauma, depression, anxiety, just those big three, but we're concerned about babies being too attached. Right. So like maybe we should change that idea. So just from that perspective, focusing on what's right in front of you right now, focusing on the resources that you have, limiting your exposure to things that make you feel like you don't have a lot of control, or the things that you can't control. You can't control what he gets up and says in a press conference. You can control whether or not you wash your hands and you drink your ginger tea, and and then I think giving ourselves permission to not be in this moment. You don't have to be super mom, best homeschooler ever, best they have the best snacks and they read all the best books. I think giving ourselves permission, just as we have to do after our children are born, to say, you know what, this is a big deal. We are all experiencing something the likes of which we have never seen before, and it's not over. and maybe this is just the first wave, and maybe in the future it'll get better, maybe it'll get worse. And so I have to take care of myself and keep my strength up, and recognize that I can give myself permission to not be perfect in this space. And I won't beat myself up because he had his tablet for an extra 30 minutes today, or what have you, right? And so I think that just giving ourselves that permission to not have to control everything in this completely uncontrollable situation, and to break our addiction to productivity, whether it's I have to become the best mom, or I have to become the best stay-at-home employee while juggling these 4 kids that I have in my house, or what have you. I think just giving ourselves permission to rest and to recognize that this is big, and that we don't have to have it all the time. I think that would be key.
Yes, that's beautiful. And Sister Kortni, you want to say anything to that, or?
I just totally agree with it. I just turned 41 April 9th, and my husband asked me what I wanted. Well, he didn't really ask. I guess I had been saying it so much, but we were in quarantine at the time. So he goes, I got you the best present, or something you've always wanted. I'm like, oh, I'm going to Miami, being sarcastic. And he goes, no, he's like, you can't go to Miami. And I'm duh. But he got me a hotel room for 2 nights alone, with no children, no phone calls, no, just me and DoorDash in my room with some music and a big bed to myself.
Yes.
And it was like myself. People are like, you want to be alone? Absolutely, I do.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It was great. I did go home to nurse real quick for about 20 minutes, because I was uncomfortable, but just was able to have that time, because it's about self. I cannot provide, especially the way I'm providing now. I was, I have an HR background, but I'm home with 4 children. I have to fix 3 meals a day, and they not eating no banquet meals. Ain't no wrong with banquet if that's what you're doing, but my blood is not. So I got to cook. I'm in there roasting Brussels sprouts,
right?
And, making cinnamon and salmon and kale and potato. So biscuits. I've been feeding my kids biscuits with every meal because I need to fill them up. I got 4 boys that each at a house at home. So
Right.
it's just been a matter of just I needed that time for me, and I'm happy that he recognized it, whether it was a birthday present, whatever it was. But that moment, I really realized I needed to do nothing. I didn't open my mouth for the first 10 hours. You know what I mean? I needed that, and I don't get that at home. It's just not realistic for me to be able to get that. So just take some time for yourself, because it is important. And self, I'm sitting here next to a social worker, and every time y'all talk about mental health, she's like, it's just so important, to take care of yourself. If my kids are no good without me, and I can't be any benefit to them if I don't start with me first to take care, and my husband making sure that he's able to provide and healthy to take care of us as well. So.
Right. Well, I want to thank all of you. I want to thank you, sisters, for coming on here and just covering just the different aspects of having a healthy pregnancy. I think we covered everything in 2 hours or more. But I think it's time, and like the conversation that, like you're saying, Sister Andrea, of us going to get mental health, I think we need to also begin to focus on having a healthy and successful pregnancy too. In essence, what we're basically talking about is bringing back the family unit in the Black community, because our families are so fractured. And that's one of the beautiful things about the doulas, is that, some of us, can't even go to family for help. And so we do need sometimes we do need some help from external forces, and preferably in our community who can relate to what we're going through. As a Black woman and as a Black man in that same situation. So with that, I want to thank you all for once again joining me. I appreciate you, your time, your expertise, your knowledge, and in your life experience, sharing us with this whole process of bringing new life into the world. And now we can see our young babies as they're growing, and you can see the light of God in them, and their purpose starting to to come out. And so it's a beautiful thing. So with that, I want to close out, and may you all, and if you all can, send me any information that I can post as well to this video. And with that,
And
thank
it'll
you
be
all.
on YouTube.
Yes, it was streaming live on YouTube today.
Okay.
So they of course saw all of my mistakes, and Sister Kortni,
Oh, please.
the other sister, she's gonna be like, wait a minute, I wasn't on that program.
We're good friends. I know I'm gonna have to. I'm like, Kortni, I did not take one. I love you.
Right. Well, thank you all, and may you all be blessed and stay safe.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, Andrea.
All right.
Bye. Nice
Take care.
meeting you.
God bless.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.